Testing 1, 2, 3. You heard that, right?
I did.
Okay.
Okay. Well, how's it going there, Grandmaster?
It's going pretty good. Pretty good. A little cold down here for Florida. I'm telling you. I'm not used to it.
Yeah, it's a little chilly down here in Texas as well. We like it. We like it in the 70s and 80s, not the 50s. So
yeah, because it's about 55, 57 right now. That's crazy.
Gotcha. Well, today we're gonna walk through a part one interview of you to start to document your story, so that we have a legacy that will carry on well beyond your years. And when people want to know about you, they're able to learn about you without having to guess. And one thing I've learned through my specifically my studies of Krav is that unfortunately there's not a lot of videos and documentation directly from Emil Lichtenfield to tell us his story. And so a lot of his story is told by other people that sometimes are politically motivated to have their own story, or you understand when it comes to lineage. So what I want to be able to do with this is be able to document in your own words, your lineage and such. So if it's all right, we'll go ahead and get started and just kind of give you an idea of the format. We kind of walked through this once before. So the format today is going to be, we're going to try to cover part one, which is going to be your life up into from birth until the end of the Vietnam War. And then part two will be, we'll pick up at the end of the Vietnam War, explore Okinawa, Ichinchonru, and then your movement to Maryland, your life with Judy, and then of course your new life with your new life with your beloved that you have now in Florida, and how you got there and all that good jazz. So we'll just get started with, why don't you just tell me first, when were you born?
I was born September 14th, 1948 in Sinton, Texas.
So where is Sinton?
That if you go on the Texas map and you look on the coastline for Corpus Christi, it's about 30 miles inland.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so were you there your whole childhood, or was it only the formative years there?
Just I think we moved out of there when I was 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mom and dad got divorced. Was that the action of moving, or what was the action of moving?
I really don't recall at that time. I do know when I was 5, they had already been divorced. Okay. Yeah, Mama and my brother and myself, we lived in San Antonio.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how many brothers and sisters do you have?
I got one of each. Both of them are gone, of course, right, for various things. My sister, she's actually adopted. So, okay. But, as far as I was concerned, she was my real blood.
Right, right. And so were you the youngest, the oldest? How do you fall in the list?
I'm in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, my brother, he was 3 years older than me.
So you do realize the middle child's always a screwed up child.
Of course. But I'm the only one that became successful.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And so let's kind of look backwards and look at a little bit your heritage. So Rankin, what is that name? Tell me where that comes from.
Rankin itself is an Irish, Scottish name. Our relatives, I can't remember the name of the boat that they came across, but they landed at Williamsburg. And from there, they just spread out mainly in the Virginia, West Virginia, and a few actually came down this way. We have some distant cousins. Instead of coming into Virginia, they had migrated to England and then to Canada. If you've ever heard the Rankin family, it's a singing group up there, platinum and all that good stuff. We are second and third cousins.
Gotcha. And so did you have much experience with your grandparents at all?
Not really. My grandfather on my father's side, he passed away the same year I was born. My grandmother, she died at 26 when they had the influenza outbreak. Yeah, and that took a lot of people across the United States. On my mother's side, my grandfather, he was Jewish. His relatives had escaped the concentration camps, And they came over here when he was just a baby. So when he grew up in the newspaper business, and he worked for the New York Times. When I went up there, I had the privilege of what he did. He actually distributed the newspapers all up and down to Long Island, that kind of thing. So
it's pretty easy work, right?
Oh, no. Actually, I had the privilege of going out with him a couple of times. And so my job was to actually throw the papers. And some of these bundles are huge. So he stayed up driving. He just laughed when I complained. He said, "This is what I do every day, boy."
That's fun. So what about your mom's side? Did you have much interaction with your grandparents there at all?
Well, no, that was them.
Oh, that was your mom's side. So what about your dad's side?
Well, as I say, my dad's side, my grandfather, he died the same year I was born.
Oh, okay, I got you.
My grandmother, she died at 26 because
that was your dad's side. That was that. So your mom's side, the one that you went throwing papers with.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. And so your mom got divorced when you were young.
I was very young, exactly.
And so she got custody of you and your brother and sister.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Did she ever remarry?
She did for about a couple of weeks.
Okay.
The guy that she married, he tried to discipline us in a physical way, and she beat him up, kicked him out, and got a divorce.
Wow.
My mother was she was from New York City, and
so she didn't put up with it.
Oh no, nobody messes with her babies.
So, like from the time you were a baby until like right before high school, let's talk about that area of your life. What were you mostly in New York from elementary school and junior high, or were you in Texas?
I was in San Antonio.
Okay.
Yeah, I started off. The school was Bonham Elementary. I did my first 3 years there, and the third year was kind of interesting. We had the teacher. She come up and she said, "Okay, boys and girls, we've got a new student coming in, and this student here looks a lot different than you or me, and so just make her comfortable." She was a black girl.
Oh,
we didn't care. It's just another kid that we could play with, that kind of thing.
Right.
So after about a week, all of a sudden we're looking around. We asked the teacher, "Where'd this girl?" "Oh, she went to a better school. She went to an integrated school." Yeah. So we had an education like that. We didn't have any kind of negative bone in our bodies. We were just kids.
Right.
And that was the first example of that kind of living. Not good.
So who was the biggest influence on you in that early childhood area, from birth to about, 7th, 8th grade? Who was the biggest influence on you?
Always my mother.
Okay. So what's the one, if there's one thing that you think of with your mom that she taught you, what would that one thing be?
Respect. She instilled respect because you never know who you're going to talk to. My brother and my sister, they were like, sorry about that. They were like rebels, and they got into trouble. Matter of fact, they even fought each other, and I was the one that broke in. But Mama always wanted me. She always wanted the best for me, and because of how she treated me, I'm the only one that got education in the family. She graduated high school at 15, 16 years old. She was very bright. My brother, he quit. He did other things. My sister quit. She did other things. But I went and got myself a PhD. Well, I got a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, 2 masters, and a PhD, an honorary PhD.
Nice.
So I'm very fortunate. I wouldn't have had that kind of drive if it wasn't for her. So I owe her everything.
So was there anybody childhood-wise, like grandparents or uncles, aunts, or your mom that was a martial artist, or are you the first real martial artist in the family?
I'm the only one.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody else, they were too busy working. Our family, I don't know much about my mother's side, but on our side, they were hard workers. They were immigrant workers, type of people. Wherever there's job, they would go there. Gotcha. My father, he worked as a mechanic, and as well as working in the oil field, and that was hard work.
So did you do some oil field work when you were growing up?
I did when I was 12 years old. Spent the summer with him, and he said, "All right, let's go." So he taught me the trade about oil drill and so forth. Matter of fact, he's the one that got me to drive. We're heading out to the field, and we're on this old road. And he looked at me, he says, "Boy, stop the car." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Just stop the car. You keep hounding about wanting to drive. Get your butt over here." I says, "Okay." So we're going down the way, and I start to do one of these things. He said, "You got two choices, son. You either run into that car that's coming at you or keep this car going straight." That was entertaining.
How old were you when that happened?
12.
12.
So,
well, not a good idea to nowadays to do that, but probably really wasn't that far off back then and where you lived at. I would suspect that there's a lot of people that did that with their kids back then.
oh yeah. Well, my father, he lived about 20 miles from me. So Mama dropped actually my brother and myself off. They went back home and I stayed with them. And that's when I got my taste to drilling life.
Gotcha. And so talk about high school a bit. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to 3 different places. I went to Somerset, which is just south of San Antonio. Mama moved, and we moved with her up. Went to Flushing High School, which is in Queens, New York.
Okay.
Then I went to high school. I was like a gypsy. I went to high school in a place called Divine, and that's in Texas.
Okay.
And then I went back to New York, a place called Franklin K. Lane. And because of Franklin K. Lane, I joined the Army. It was safer that way.
Right. So tell me about activities in high school. What was it? Were you a football player, a basketball player, badminton? I mean, what was your thing?
I started out playing football in junior high, but I had bad feet. I got to play in 3 games, and the feet just got the better of me. But I was a band manager also. So I did band full time after that. I played the trombone. And so I was pretty good. I became first chair.
Yeah. I mean, when you told me this, when we talked about high school before, this was one of those like, really, I had no idea that you had an instrumental musical background. And so I was kind of like, all right, the old guy's a trombone player. When's the last time he played?
Oh gosh, 30 years ago.
So you're not going to do it at the Hall of Fame?
Well, I tell you one thing. We were talking about my singing, for a test to see if this is fine. 2 Hall of Fame, the Hall of Fame, the last Hall of Fame in Maryland.
Okay.
I was setting up the karaoke just for some fun. So I started singing. The crew, the hotel crew, they stopped doing what they were doing and they were watching me and they were filming.
Wow. So it was either really good or really bad, one of the two.
One lady, she was a bartender. She wanted me to autograph her film. I said, for what? So, you better very good. I said, okay, thank you. It was a lot of fun.
So high school was pretty normal, pretty run of the mill, pretty average.
No, it was a little rugged.
Talk about what happened in New York that drove you into the military.
Well, Franklin K. Lane is one of the roughest in New York City. And the street going from the subway with the elevated, it's called an L. Go from there to the school itself, it's about 4 lanes wide. Okay. On one side of the street, this is my first day going to something of this monster. On one side, there was nothing but Puerto Ricans. On the other side, it was nothing but blacks. And they had it in for each other. So I was told, because you sound like you're from Dallas, even more than Dallas does, all right, with my Texas accent, don't talk. And whatever you do, don't look left or right. I said, man, this is crazy. So I finally get into school. I'm not there but 10, 15 minutes. And then there was a gang war in the cafeteria. What did the cafeteria fight? It was a gang war. There were 2 murders, 3 rapes. 2 of the teachers got beaten up. Yeah, and I'm a country boy, because Divine, well, Somerset, 200 people in the entire school system from first to 12th. Divine's the same way. And then I go to something like this.
Wow. Yeah.
So
pretty impactful, huh? First time you ever really saw violence? Was that the first time?
Basically, yeah, that kind. I mean, you see it on television, and
right.
But
truth be told, probably this was back in the 60s.
Yeah. Yes.
Or late 50s, early 60s when you were in high school. When did you graduate?
Well, I graduated. I knew more than the teachers did, so I left.
What year was that?
That was my junior year.
Okay. What year was that, though?
I joined the Army in 65, so
early 60s.
Basically 65, yeah. Yeah.
So the United States was pretty at peace and not much going on at that time, huh?
Oh, man, it was going crazy everywhere. Yeah.
So, I mean, for those that don't know, because there'll be some people that watch us someday that won't really know, that was pretty much the height of the civil rights movement, wasn't it?
Exactly. And it's any large city, Detroit, DC, Philadelphia, Chicago. I mean, they were all flames, and it was just crazy. But you did what you had to do.
So tell me your take on like growing up in that time period. I mean, what was your takeaway from that mess compared to today? I mean, because obviously today in 2020, it's, to my generation, we think it's the worst it's been. Obviously, to somebody that had to live through the civil rights movement, it may not be. I don't know. How do you reconcile this generation to what you saw this time period?
Well, back then, the race relations should never even taken place, because you have people from the north, they just did not, and even from the south, they did not like anybody of a color. And we had what you call the skinheads. They didn't like anybody unless they were white, Baptist, that kind of a thing.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
And so I can understand the blacks wanting freedom because they never had it before. But nowadays, people live on hatred, and it doesn't matter where it comes from. You can be white, black, or whatever, and it's a terrible education for the young people, no matter what their background is today.
So you think it's worse today, or was it worse back then?
It's worse today.
Is it?
Oh, yes.
So the civil unrest and the divide in the country is greater today than it was in the 60s.
Oh, exactly. See, back then, we were religious. I don't want to say Christians, but we were more religious then than what is happening now
as a society.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so people hear me pray. They say, "Well, I didn't know you were this. I didn't know you were that." I said, it gives me a good resolve when I talk to the Lord. And if most people would do that, you would think that they would start calming down. But they use His name for their nastiness.
Right. So you go back. So you see this big fight. You're a junior in high school. It's 1965-ish. Made a pretty big impact on you, didn't it?
It did. As a matter of fact, I had a friend that he wasn't very strong, and some of the guys were picking on him. So I invited them up to the football field, and I was the protector. And so I got angry when I was fighting this one individual to the point where they had to pick me up. If I wasn't provoked, I'd have been okay, but I was provoked. I broke the poor guy's nose. Both of his eyebrows were completely open. He lost several teeth. And I was called down to the gymnasium where the superintendent had an arm out like this and a sawed-off baseball bat. He hit me one time, and I could still feel it. Yeah. But whenever people had a skirmish in Somerset, they say, "Okay, I tell you what, I can't fight." Them talking, I'll go ahead and get Billy. He'll come over here. He doesn't mind. So
you went by Billy back then?
Oh, yeah. Everybody called me Billy. The only ones that are allowed to these days, you, and my family, not my present family, but all of the ones in Texas. That's all they knew me as.
Right. So you see this fight, and you make a decision off that fight, huh?
Oh yeah.
What was that decision?
Well, the decision was it scared me because what I had done to that individual, I didn't remember any of it because he kept calling me SOB, SOB, SOB. And all I saw was red. And when this football player pulled me off of this guy, I looked at my knuckles, they were all busted open. And I looked at his face and said, oh man. Yeah, it wasn't any good. He and we became pretty good friends after that.
Oh, okay.
But that's not the kind of education you want to put out there.
Right, right.
So today, for what I know as a martial artist and my history of being around that kind of a thing, I really fear about getting into a skirmish with somebody. Well, it's like when you pepper sprayed me, you had the whole police department out there. I wonder what the heck's that about?
Experience and wisdom is what that's about. So what prompted you? Was that what prompted you to go down? I mean, because Vietnam War was going on. I mean, it wasn't new. It'd been going on for 3 or 4 years at that point.
Well, we actually got involved in it in '62.
Right.
And so those were the advisors. You didn't hear a lot. '64, you started seeing it on television. '65, it got worse. And it just escalated from that point. We had a tremendous amount of people get put in. I should say they all deployed by the thousands at that time to Vietnam. And when it came to my turn to go, I volunteered for that. So
tell me about that. What triggered the go down to the recruiting station? How did that happen? What preempted that?
Well, because I was going to Franklin K. Lane, I actually feared for my own life there. And I told my mom what's going on, and I would like to go, join the Army. And she questioned me about it. So I've already stopped at the reservist, whoever that guy is.
The recruiting office. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, here's the papers that you need to sign. So she thought I was going to be in the Army band. And I tried. And so anyway, she signed it. I go back down. Everything was fine. I figured if I'm in the Army, I'm going to have a rifle. I'll have a weapon to defend myself. And I'll learn other things at the same time.
So you go down there, you raise your right hand. And was that the first time you ever took an oath of office?
Yes. Yeah.
So how'd that make you feel?
Oh, man, I felt proud. Yeah. Because, I've seen other people, being transported in a body bag, coming back. And I said, this is not good. This is not good. But if I can go over and do my part. And so what they do, they didn't send me to Vietnam. They sent me to France after training.
Well, we're going to get to France in a minute. So let's go back a little bit. So you swear in, you take that oath of office, and then they send you back home for a couple of days, or they put you right on a bus?
Oh, no. I swore in at Fort Hamilton, New York. And there was at least 200 of us. I was considered RA. At 17, I couldn't be drafted, so it's called regular Army. These are the volunteers. All the RAs were put on one side. All of the USs, which are the draftees, they get in this line. And one of the sergeants go down the line, and he would go like this: "You're Army, you're Marine. You're Army, you're Marine." Oh yeah, it was big time for these guys. And so we did some paperwork, and I don't believe we did any shots there. So we got on the bus and we headed on. The group that I was with, we went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and that's where I did the reception, getting all my uniforms, all that good stuff. And that's where I did my basic training.
Where you got your first real good haircut, right?
Yeah, I even had to pay for it.
I know, right?
50 cents.
The worst haircut on the planet, they make you pay for it.
Yeah, you figured, okay, I said, well, no, get used to it, son. One individual was there. He says, "Oh, can I keep my sideburns?" And the barber tells him, "Well, just hold it out your hand." So he did, and he put them in his pocket.
So how was that first experience of meeting your first drill instructor?
Oh man, there's a little bitty Puerto Rican. If you've ever seen the movie Full Metal Jacket, when the GIs get on, that's what this guy did. He come on, started screaming at us, and we were petrified. And then he looks at me, he says, I don't think anybody told you to sit there on your dead ass. Get out. I was gone, duffel bag and everything. I even tripped down the stairs going out of the bus.
So you get there and you do basic training. And there's some people that probably don't know how that works, but it's not just going to learn how to shoot a gun. It's you march forever.
Oh yeah.
And you stand in line after line, but every moment, at least from my memory of basic, every moment of every day there was full. There was never a moment where I wasn't supposed to be somewhere or do something. And so for you, was that level of discipline, was that new to you, or was that just kind of old hat growing up where you grew up?
Well, that kind of discipline was very new, because my mother wouldn't scream at me unless I did something to upset her, and then I deserved it. Here I'm being screamed at.
No reason at all.
I'm just breathing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so prior to basic training, had you ever studied or trained in martial arts?
Never.
So, I talked about this before. I think a lot of people don't realize that that martial way that we talk about, that, I've spent, my gosh, brother, 25 years together talking about what it means to be a warrior. It really started then, didn't it? I mean, it really started with basic training where you learn this level of very translatable to what we do in martial arts. You learn this level of discipline first.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Who you are, getting your mind right, getting your physical body conditioned, eating everything they tell you to eat, not eating what they tell you not to eat, sleeping when they tell you to sleep. I mean, literally, they create this whole world of discipline around you. But then what I found was fascinating for me was that first time learning, at the time, the Army judo system, throwing each other down and beating each other's asses. Was that the first time you ever experienced hand-to-hand combatives training?
Oh yeah, that was it. And I found it it was very entertaining. The education was great. I loved it.
It's like something clicked, didn't it, for you?
It did. It was like I was born to do this. And so the DI come over. He said, "You want to go at it for real?" I said, "No, thank you." He said, "All right." And he attacked me anyway, and I did exactly what he told me to do. And I dropped him, and then I started shaking. I think, oh, this guy's going to beat the devil out of me. One guy challenged him, and that was a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 3 of them took him out.
So that was the first time you'd ever, and it's funny to me because, like, and my background. I mean, I started in boxing and as a kid, and then I got into the military style of combatives, and then got into Krav, and then I jumped into Taekwondo and was in most basically those are my two predominant disciplines. What I found fascinating, for me at least, not necessarily in the Krav Maga side, was very similar to the military, but what I found really fascinating was the level of structure in Taekwondo. It was very similar in a lot of ways to the Army in the aspect that they were teaching mass quantities of people the same type of skill and the meticulous breakdown and knowledge of how to break it down. It's much like with karate. I mean, there's a method to teaching a lot of people at the same time, for example, the kata. And that's, to me, what basic training combatives really was the first thing I recognized as a black belt in martial arts, is that, my gosh, it's not that far different from or far removed from what the structure of training that we got in the Army. Was that your experience too, or no?
Exactly. See, people, when you hear martial arts, they really don't know the true definition of martial. It's military.
It's the military arts.
Yeah. And when you say military training, I don't want to learn to be a soldier. You're not. However, the discipline is the same. You got to train to go out and battle. If you waver from the priorities of that, you're going to die. Mm-hmm. And so, it's all good.
So when was the first time? So we talked about this before. So you go to hand-to-hand combatives, you do great, you enjoy it. But then I'm sure for every soldier I talk the same way. Then there's that moment when you meet your new girlfriend.
Well, I met her before I went in, so.
No, I'm talking about the M4.
No. The M14.
You had an M14. I had an M4 when I went in. But anyway, so you get your new friend, your new companion, and it was an M14.
Yeah, yeah. And
How did that feel the first time you had that weapon in your hands?
I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had no problem with it at all. I forget what I named it, but I could take that thing apart, clean it, put it back together, all within 5 minutes. And that's with the cleaning. Just to take it apart and look and put it back together.
Who knows? Yeah.
30 seconds.
Yeah. So you go to the range, you learn how to shoot. Was that the first time you ever really fired a rifle?
No. I used to go out deer hunting and that kind of thing with 30.
You had some experience going in.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And so you go in, but they teach you how to do it different. I mean, killing a deer for sustainment to eat is different than preparing to kill a soldier. And I'm just thinking back to, we were talking, it's probably, I bet it's 28 years ago, maybe longer now. It would have been 99. How many years ago is that?
Too many.
Yeah, too many. I was in Maryland. We were just sitting. We were having dinner somewhere. We were just talking about. I had just finished reading a book about the Marshall Way. One of several books you'd had me read over that period of time, and it was talking about how they desensitized soldiers and how to go and do what we have to do when you're shooting a firearm in a human being. And so they use the silhouette so that you get used to that outline of a human being. And so how was that the first couple of times you started shooting that? Were you recognizing at that time early on that you were training in a art, a way, a tactic that was going to be applied on another human being, or did it not really register at that point?
Well, when we were doing, when I got into basic, all right, we had to do exercises, and every time you do an exercise, you always use the word kill.
Right.
Always. And so it was drummed into your head at that point. And I didn't have any issue with it. I didn't have to shoot at anybody yet. And I figured, okay, well, I'll get the education and hopefully I'll survive if I ever do go to war. But to go out and shoot a silhouette, I did not have problems with that because it was a piece of cardboard. And some of the individuals did, but
do you believe that training prepared you for what you'd eventually have to do?
Yes, it did. We had some very good instructors.
And so you go through, was it 8, 9, 10? How many weeks was basic for you?
It was 8.
8 weeks. And you finished basic training, and where was your AIT at?
It was down at Fort Gordon.
Fort Gordon, Georgia.
Yep, I was supposed to have been in the communication at the comm center, working for either the Washington, D.C. or that kind of thing. I said, well, okay, I guess I'm not going to go into combat. So I did all my thing there, and I trained with the, the 173rd for a short while. They wouldn't let me in because I was too young. But we trained with them with the exception of doing the jumps and all that good stuff. So I got a pretty good education while I was there.
And so you get done with AIT. Do you go home next, or
I get leave? I went. Yeah, they gave me a week, something like that, and from there. And home itself was actually New York City. That's where my mom lived.
So you went to New York City?
Yeah. And so I went home to her, and after the week, I go to she takes me to McGuire, which is McGuire Air Force Base, which is just on the other side of the fence from Fort Dix, and that's where I flew to Europe. So
you get stationed in France?
I did, yeah.
And so we talked about France before, you and I. France is pretty laid back, pretty easy. Got along with everybody.
Oh yes, oh yeah.
Except for the first time you ever faced violence on the street directed at you was an automobile incident, wasn't it?
Well, it wasn't violence; it was stupidity on my part. A friend of mine, we started to celebrate my 18th birthday in a hotel. I was civilian status, no uniform, so that was my barracks, if you will. And so we had to meet some folks at a bar about 2 or 3 blocks away. In Paris, they have these parking streets where it's 2 cars on each side of the curb, and there's plenty of room for a car or 2 to go down. My friend, he runs between the 2 cars and takes off across the road. I'm following him, not without a care in the world. I hear some screeching. I turn to my left, and I see this car coming at me, and I'm like, oh, I put my hands up this, and it actually stopped here. Mm. And it still didn't dawn on me what happened. I go to the driver, and he was petrified. I said, "You okay?" He didn't know what I was saying, but I knew he couldn't move. So I went ahead 2 old blocks down to the bar, ordered a drink. I couldn't drink it. All of a sudden, I started getting the shakes. I almost died. And
the first time you were face down.
Yeah, yeah. Of that nature. I mean, when I was 6 years old, I fallen 2 flights straight down.
That's pretty lucky to survive that.
Yeah, yeah. So the good Lord's been watching me. He's been with me all my life.
And so let's talk about that for a minute. So you're a man of faith. I know that. Yes.
Yes.
So what was your faith growing up?
A Baptist, Southern Baptist.
Southern Baptist. All right. And went to church with mom, that kind of thing?
Whenever we could.
Whenever you could, yeah.
Right. She was basically on foot and had to take a bus everywhere, for her job.
Right.
And for us to try to get on a bus to go to a church, that was where we lived in San Antonio, was a little difficult.
And so I've got a good relationship with God. You pray quite often?
Every day.
I mean, I know you to be a man of God. I know your faith strong, but a lot of people may not know that. And so when do you feel you found salvation in Jesus? When was that in your life?
In actuality, after I grew up, because I was baptized when I was 10.
Right.
And I didn't, okay, hey, I'm going to get the floating water, whoopee. But not knowing what it actually represented, I didn't. When I got stationed overseas, where, since we're not talking about Vietnam yet, but that's where it was at. That's pretty much where I understood that the Lord is watching over me.
And so that's really the first time you had what I would refer to as genuine faith, real faith.
Yes.
And so talk about the chain of events that led from volunteering in the military, being stationed in a non-combat zone during a combat era in France, to what transpired to get you to end up in Vietnam from France?
Well, the President Charles de Gaulle, he wanted us out of France. And the process was taking place. So we got orders, our company got orders that we'll be transferring to Worm, Germany. And we had some big equipment that we would have to pick up and haul. I go to my company commander. He was the first lieutenant. This is on a Friday. And so I said, I don't really want to go to Germany, but I'm volunteering for Vietnam. So we had a discussion. He thought I was crazy. He said, I tell you what, specialist, I was a Spec 4 at that time, which was equivalent to corporal. And he said, I tell you what, I won't sign it, but you go home, and Monday morning you come back in here, and if you are still that adamant about going, then I'll go ahead and sign it reluctantly. First thing Monday morning, Specialist Rankin reporting as requested. And he says, you are stupid, I said, well, that's where I belong. And so he went ahead and signed it. I get on an airplane. I've got a broken arm. I got lonesome one day, and I started beating the devil out of a locker and broke several fingers. So I'm flying in the air with a cast, dumb. So I had to go off with my mom.
Hold on now. Let me make sure that people that watch this really hear what you just said. So you volunteered to get in the Army during a time of draft and war.
Right.
So you weren't drafted, you volunteered.
I was.
And now you get a cush assignment, and now you volunteer again.
Yes.
And this time you're saying, no, I'm volunteering to go where the action is, to combat.
Exactly.
So you're now volunteered twice.
Yes, sir.
So you get on this plane, you're flying. I've been on that plane before. It's not a fun plane, not to Vietnam, obviously different era of military, but been on that plane to that first deployment. I just remember when I landed, there was a couple things that really were impactful for me. And the first thing, before we get to landing, let's talk about what you saw on the way in.
I thought I was flying into hell. literally. All I saw was flame everywhere. I looked out the window, nothing but flame, not big, explosion, but just little flames everywhere. I said, wow. Later on, I found out that, they were burning unmentionables. So we land, and first of all, the air had a pungent smell.
Stench, right? Because that's what I mean. When I landed my first time, I was like, "Whoa, I'm not an American anymore for sure." Because it smelled. I still remember that smell today, and that was, my God, that was in 1990.
That was burnt flesh.
Yeah.
And people that have never understood about what a human smells like when they're burning, it stays with you forever. Yeah, it's not good.
I also, I'm sure your experience was, I know your experience was magnified to mine based on the conflict you were in compared to the ones that I were in, the ones that I was in. Your conflict was considerably more loss, especially fatalities. So when you're getting off the plane, what's getting put on the plane?
Well, fortunately, the bodies, the dead bodies, I should say, the body bags, they were getting on a C-130, and not on
the airfield.
Yes, sir.
So you're coming off a plane, and bodies are getting put on a plane. What does that do to your psyche?
It made everything real.
Mm-hmm.
You say, well, hopefully I don't go home like that, because it'll break my mother's heart. And so you have to get it out of your mind right away, because you go into combat and you know that for a fact that could happen to you. So I landed at Benoit, got on the bus from there, and headed to Long Bend. And that's where
we get there. Let me just kind of give you an out. Is that fair? So we kind of talked about this before. I'm a vet, you're a vet. Sometimes it's easy for us to talk about this stuff, but there'll be people that are not veterans that are gonna see this potentially or watch this, and so I want to make sure that I love you. You're like a dad to me. I mean, you're kind of this weird mixture of a brother and a dad and an instructor. I don't even know what our relationship is. It's one of the strangest ones I've ever had, but it's a great relationship. So I don't want you to feel that you have to answer anything, or if we get into an area you're just not comfortable, I want you to just know you can just say, not today. Because I do want to go to some tough places in a way that I believe I can do in a respectful way to your life and your experiences. At the same time, I want you to have an out to say, not today. Fair enough?
I appreciate that. I think I'm pretty good.
I know you are. I know you're a lot further along than you were even when I first met you when it comes to this stuff. So you get on this bus from Long Bend. Where are you heading?
We're heading
to Long Bend.
We're heading to Long Bend. The base that we landed at is Benoit.
Benoit. Okay.
It was one of the largest air bases that we have in Vietnam. So we get on this bus, and we're heading to Long Bend, and we didn't have any weapons or anything like that. You had these thick bars and mesh along the windows, and to keep the grenades from coming in. So it was about maybe 8 to 10 miles from from Benoit to Long Bend. So we're going down these tiny roads, and you get an education. When there's a lot of people, we felt pretty good, but then whenever there weren't any people on the road, that's when everybody on the bus got nervous, because if there's nobody there, that means the enemy is moving in, and they didn't want to get killed. So we finally get to Long Bend, and we felt relaxed. Long Bend is where it was the replacement battalion.
Where they decide who's going where. Exactly.
And so we got an orientation in general for the whole country. But it was, I got my rifle there.
And so you didn't bring your trombone.
No, it's a different horn I had to blow.
Right. Yeah. Right. So talk about that. I mean, so here it is. Your mom at 17 signed you up for the band. I bet she didn't know that you were going to end up not in the band.
Right.
Sure probably didn't think their baby was going to end up in combat. Sure didn't think you were going to get assigned to the
Infantry.
infantry.
Yeah, first infantry.
Specifically, what I mean, not everybody being the 101st. You were in the Big Red One, right?
Yes.
And so you get assigned to the Big Red One. What did you think about that? I know you paid attention, probably like I did to some parts of school. I bet you paid attention a little bit to the history side. So you
I,
knew about the Big Red One, didn't you?
I paid attention to everything. See, I didn't have any infantry training because I was Signal Corps.
Right.
So we get to the First Infantry Division headquarters, and just across the street, the 275th Signal Battalion or Company. And I thought I was going to go over there. I did after a while, and the commander of First Infantry, he was giving everybody an orientation, and he looks at me and said, "You're Signal." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Okay, you're going to be operating that." And what it was, the Prick 25, one of these big radios. I said, "Sir, I've never been trained on anything like that." He had this big old grin on his face, walked up to me, put his arm around my shoulder, said, "Son, OJT is a wonderful thing." On the job training. Yeah, right. I don't want anybody killed because of me.
Right.
So, but you learn fast. You definitely learn fast.
And so you leave Long Bend. Where do you end up?
Okay, that was a place called Zion.
Okay, Zion. So you leave Long Bend, you're at Zion, which is First Infantry's headquartered.
Yes.
And you operate out of there for a whole year?
Well, no, I was there, oh gosh, maybe 6 months. And then they put me on what they call the Red Ball Express. It's a convoy that takes ammunition supplies to and from different places. So we went from Zion up to a place called Like, and I was there for about 3 months. Usually Like would get hit every single night. The last time that they got hit before I got there was just the day before. The time when I was there, not one bullet, not one rocket, nothing came into the compound. The day I left, the bunk or the hooch that I lived in got a direct hit. 6 or 7 of the guys that I was working with, they were taking a shower. They got a direct hit. That's what I'm saying. God was watching after me.
I had a similar experience in Panama. The McDonald's, we went through the McDonald's. Yeah, there was McDonald's there. Strange, funny things that go on. And we decided we were tired of MREs, so we're going to go eat at the McDonald's, even though they told us don't do it. And so we literally, you know how that goes. So a bunch of idiot soldiers, we go over there and order us some, I don't know, Big Macs, whatever, eat them up, leave. And within 15 minutes of us leaving, they blow the building up.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking to myself, oh, wow. I mean, that was kind of like the, holy shit, this is real.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. But
and so even though,
okay, I was on the convoy, I was the shotgun. All right. I wasn't the driver. I was the lookout guy. And so we got a couple of shots going up. We crossed a bridge out of a place called Bencat. And it was like a big gorge. We crossed the thing. As soon as the last truck goes across, there was about 15 trucks. It got blown up. All right. And so the activity at Like stopped before I got there. And then it started again when I left. When I left, I had headed down to Benoit, and that's where I finished out that year plus another year.
And so had you, at this point, before you get reassigned there, you've already earned your combat infantry badge?
No, I didn't get I didn't get that. I should have. I didn't get it until I was at Benoit.
Oh, okay. All right. So you get down to Benoit. Then tell me that last 6 months of the first tour. What was that most? I based on conversation we've had, I know that's where you were most impacted. It's really where your life kind of changed.
Well, it was actually the last 9 months that I was there. I remember I was there 2 years.
Right.
Tet Offensive hit. And there, I mean, it was crazy. People coming inside our boundaries and all this good stuff. You didn't know who to shoot, who not to shoot. It was just nuts. So after that was over, I went out with the 11th Cav, and we're policing up dead bodies, and trying to find certain things. I found a couple of places where it was a weapons cache, and there must have been about 30 different guns, RPGs, over 3,000 rounds of different kinds of ammo, grenades. So they were actually going to come after us again. So I got, yeah, it was interesting.
So when did you meet your first Korean in Vietnam?
Oh, when I was at Xeon.
Talk about that a little bit. So who were they and what were they? I mean, for those who don't know, it's called the ROC Soldier, which is a Republic of South Korea, right?
Exactly. In Xeon, we had to do perimeter duty, and Bunker 4, which was, oh gosh, at least 3 to 4 miles from the main, outside of the main compound. So there were 4 Koreans and 2 of us Americans. And that's the bunker I would always, they say, okay, perimeter duty. So that they put me out there. The Koreans, they were doing some kind of karate or whatever you want to call it. It didn't look like anything that I trained in. And so they were going to practice on me. And I said, you touch me, I'll tell you, Sergeant. And they, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Their sergeants are nasty people. They will hurt them. And so 2 days after that, something like that, sometime after, was when I actually got out to the bush. All right. The commander, they had 6 of us, I think, 4 to 6 Americans, and there were about 6 to 10 Koreans, and 4 of them just happened to be those guys that I was doing perimeter duty. So it was supposed to be training us to be able to go out and do whatever we have to do. So we got a call from intelligence that there's no enemy activity in the area. Well, nobody told the enemy that. And so the Koreans, they were leading, and it was like, you come down into a short valley, not big, but it was clear there. And as the Koreans were walking in, so was the Viet Cong, Charlie. And so it was hand to hand for these guys. Us 6, no, there were 4 of us. I'm sorry, there was 4 of us. We couldn't shoot because we would end up shooting the Koreans. Within a few short moments, they annihilated these VCs, and I was very impressed. So
hand to hand wise, they
hand to hand, yeah, hand to hand. So when we got back, I asked my commander if I could train with these guys, and he said, "Go for it if you're that stupid." So I go down to the Korean compound. They were about a half mile from us, and I asked their officer if I could train with them. And so he said, well, go ask your commander, and I'll, Mama, go ask daddy, that kind of a thing. So I said, okay. Everybody's giving me approval. I get down there and I report to this gentleman. He was a little bitty guy. And I said, I've got permission to train with y'all if it's okay. So he looks at me from head to toe and looks at me again. He says, you train? I said, yes, sir. I woke up about 2 hours later. I don't know how he hit me or with what, but I was out. And so my martial arts training started from that point on. So I was down there almost every day if I could.
And so that's probably when you really fall in love with the martial arts at that point, I would think.
Oh, yes. Oh, it was a wonderful world. Not over there, but the training.
All right. So you finish up that first tour and it's time to go home.
I didn't want to go home.
So you tell them that, what they tell you.
They said, well, your tour's up. I said, okay, how can I stay? They said, you can volunteer for an extension to your tour. I said, okay, give me the piece of paper. I signed it for a year. He said, well, you got 30 days of free vacation. We'll send you back to the world, the land of the big BX. And, you visit.
Base exchange. That's like Walmart, for those that don't know what BX is, the big land of the big BX.
Exactly. And so that's what I did. I came home and stayed with my mother up in New York and my brother.
You felt like you were home or no?
No, I was very uncomfortable.
You wanted to go back.
Well, the thing of it is, you sit down to dinner. See, over there, you didn't mind saying, you know, your language changes. So I'm sitting down to dinner, and I never said the word hell or anything in front of my mother. And so we're having some biscuits, and I said, "Can you pass the effing butter?" But I said the word.
Right, right.
And you could have heard a pin drop. Billy is cussing. Oh my goodness. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." So, but anyway, after that, Bobby.
It changes you. I mean, I mean, most people don't get this. I mean, going to basic training changes you.
Oh yeah, it did, but not
going to France and being RA changes you again.
Yeah,
but going to combat really changes you.
Oh, it does. I grew up. I became a man.
You became a man.
Yes, yeah. I
wouldn't
suggest it for anybody else.
You come up on the end of that 30 days and you're ready to go back.
I was actually ready to go back as soon as I got here.
Yeah. And so just a tactical timeout. I'm going to make sure people that watch this catch this. You volunteered at 17.
Yeah.
You go to France. You volunteer in Vietnam.
Yep.
2 times. You do what is asked. 1 tour, 1 year, and you're free.
Exactly.
And now you volunteer a 3rd time.
Yes, sir.
So you 3 times over volunteer. What causes somebody to do that? Are you crazy?
Well, some people
don't answer that.
Now, some people say yes and some don't.
What causes you to do that, man? I mean,
well, usually the AFR, Armed Forces Radio Television, all right, they usually would censor everything coming out of the States. Well, they figured you got to live with it. And so we saw it on television and on the radio. We're listening to how bad that we're being treated in the States. You know, all those baby killers, they need to die over there. And these are our fellow Americans. And so it was, yeah. Why do I want to go home to that?
Right.
All right. And it's just like on the Freedom Bird that I went home on, the bird before me, there was a gentleman that was wounded several times. He never died. And we all landed at Travis Air Force Base. He's the first person out of the plane, still on the very top of the ramp. He holds his arms out. We were just being told this. Holds his arms out and says, "I made it home." An American civilian. They allowed people on the base to welcome home these guys. This one guy comes out of the crowd, shoots him, and kills him dead on the spot. And so we didn't want to come home to that. I mean, good gravy. So when it was our turn to land, which was the next day, it was like a ghost town. I've been to Travis a few times, but I've never seen nobody out there. The SPs,
no homecoming at all.
No. The SPs were out there, and they had us double time it to the nearest terminal. And oh yeah.
So you get back to Vietnam that 2nd tour, and tell me about how that goes.
Oh, I was so comfortable. I had my weapon, and it was all groovy. I'd already had some issues with my commander, and he called me in this one particular day, and he says, "You're volunteering to take this mission." I said, "What mission?" I'm not a special person. He said, "But you are special forces for the you're Vietnamese special forces." I said, "Well, that's beside the point." I said, "What do I have to do?" Because I'm volunteering. He said, "Well, this one individual, he's a mayor or some kind of a person in this one village, and he's playing both sides of the track. Your job is to go out and take care of him and coming back. You're not going to get any medals if you succeed. Nobody knows about this." I said, "So this is a suicide mission." They said, "Well, Sergeant Rankin, we don't like to say that." I said, "Yes, it is. You want my ass dead." So he just said, "I advise you to calm down." I said, "Why?" You gonna lock me up before I get killed? So anyway, those of you that have seen my my pictures on Facebook, I'm sitting on my hooch on a cot. I've got my purple beret, which is the Vietnamese Special Forces headgear, and I'm putting my thoughts together because I really didn't think I was going to live past that night.
When he said take care, let me pause you for a second. So when he says take care of him, that's not like go make him bacon, eggs, and coffee.
No, I had to kill him.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. So you're sitting on your hooch, you're contemplating this.
Yeah, because you know, I have to take care of this guy, and he's not shooting at me. But at the same time, I could very well get killed in the process. I didn't want really to do either one.
Right.
So I did whatever I had to do. I said, okay, you guys are going to helicopter me. I said, no, you're going to be on the back of a truck. I'm going to take you up so many meters down this one road. You'll get out. You'll have your compass, a 45, and your special bayonet that we just gave you. I said, okay. So now I'm arachnophobic. All right. I am scared to death of spiders. Vietnam, as well as Panama, where you're at, they got some of the biggest spiders in the world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I had to trick through all this to find this village. And so I'm going through slow. If you ever seen Bat 21, it was almost like that. All right. But you had to see Bat 21, the movie.
Right. It's a great movie.
Yeah, it was.
Kenny Glover and
Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman. Yeah, Gene Hackman's the shot down pilot. You're right. Yeah.
Exactly. So I hear a little bit of talking, and I'm starting to go slower. And I get to a point where I see this small hamlet, and I recognize this one guy. He lights up a cigarette and turns around. There was nobody else around. So I said, okay, this is good for me. So I sneak up, grab him by the nose, put my handle here, and so he wouldn't holler out. And I went ahead and sanctioned him. And all of a sudden, somebody's coming out of the nearest hooch, and he was fumbling, trying to chamber around, and all I did just threw the knife at him, and I was very lucky. It stabbed him here, and he went down. Nobody hollered, no shots. I took my knife, wiped it on the guy, and I go back out into the jungle. And I didn't hear anybody, any commotion, so I wasn't being chased, which I was very lucky. The next morning, I mean, I'm dirty. I'll get out. I go up through the gate, go up to the orderly room, which is the office where the commanding officer, the first shirt, all that good stuff is at. And I look at him. I said, "There, yes, OB," and I used the actual words. I said, "It didn't work. I didn't die. So there's not a damn thing you can do about it." I said, "You get in my way, and I'll do you the same way." I was very upset because he put me in a position where I had to take a human life, and I actually took two. They were hoping that I would not make it, but I did. And so for the longest time, your mind plays tricks, and for horrific things, it will bury the thoughts to keep you from going crazy. So
what else? I mean, so was that towards the end of that second tour or the beginning, middle?
It was in the middle of the second tour. And so I had about 4 months to go.
Tell me about that 4 months. What happened then?
I was in charge of the motor pool.
Pretty laid back, huh?
Yeah, they didn't want me to mess around with anybody, and it's okay. However, during that same period, had to get a convoy together. We supposed to go up to Quezon and replace the Marines. That's no. But the skirmish that those poor guys were going through finally halted, and they told us to just to back off because it had been canceled. Okay. Yeah. So my remaining part was okay, but I still didn't want to come home.
So that you finished tour number 2 and you've done enough at that point in your mind?
Yeah, I was I was still active duty. When I got home, I was inactive reserve.
But you're at that point, there comes a point, even when you know it's what you're made to do, you got to take a break. You got to pause.
Yeah, I was mentally exhausted. And
talk about that for a minute. So, I mean, when we talk often, we use that term situational awareness. I think it's a terrible term, by the way. I don't teach it anymore. I teach situational orientation to my students. But situational awareness, for those that don't know, it's really this constant evaluation of your surroundings and being aware of what's going on around you. I think for people like you, Grandmaster, it's really more situational orientation. You're not just thinking what's going on around me, but you're thinking how does it impact me? Really more to how does it affect my orientation? How does it impact my safety? And between situational awareness or orientation, whichever word you want to use, and the OODA loop, which is, again, for those that don't know, that's that cycle the brain goes in where you're always observing stimuluses and you're oriented to those stimuluses and you're deciding how to act, and then you decide and then you act. And those loops and cycles and the way the brain works. I don't think a lot of people understand this when they're not in combat or walking a beat as a cop. You don't get to turn that off, do you?
No, no.
And you don't really get much good sleep either, do you, when you're overseas?
For the longest time, I didn't. I wasn't violent when I was sleeping. I've been kicked in the back several times from my wife. Yeah. But since 68, it wasn't too bad. But when I had to get rid of the uniform, the green, then all of a sudden, if I go to a mall, a shopping center, wherever, I'm looking at everybody. I mistrust everyone. Even to this day, I still do the same thing.
Yeah.
I used to teach college, and they said, Professor Rankin, do you trust anybody? I says, no. Do you trust your wife? I said, well, it might sound cruel, but I do not. I said, I trust an individual that I know that can save my life if it needs to be that way. They go, wow, that's rough.
That's really what we talk about. We talk about the band of brotherhood, the band of brothers, the brotherhood. At the end of the day, at least my experience is those are the people that when it's been thick and they're next to you, those are the ones you really know, because at that point, there's no question.
Oh, exactly.
It wasn't about white or black or Jew or Christian. Those brothers that were to your right, left, there wasn't like a survey when all shit was hitting the fan, was it? It was just like you were glad they were there, no matter what they looked like or thought, right?
Exactly. I was even with this. Oh gosh, he was an atheist. All right, and this is during TET. So we're shooting, and out of the clear blue, he says, "Oh God, help us." I said, "Excuse me."
Now you know God. Okay, cool.
He didn't want to take. He didn't want to take any chances.
It's so funny. We used to call it foxhole faith. I mean, these guys would find Jesus right in the middle of all hell breaking loose, but they wouldn't know Jesus Friday night when they're running around chasing tail and drinking beer. But they absolutely wouldn't know Jesus when bullets are flying at them. So Vietnam was. Is it fair to say that Vietnam was a life altering moment?
Oh yeah, without it.
Yeah, if you look at the Greek word, kairos and chronos. Kairos is a ticking of time, the normal timeline, and then there's this kairos moment, this change of trajectory. In simpler terms, time was ticking. Jesus' death and sacrifice on the cross. Kairos moment for all mankind. That's macro, but micro moments. Vietnam would have been a kairos moment for you, a change in the trajectory of your life.
Exactly.
So of the Vietnam experience, if you would, just when we'll kind of end on this for today, what would be the one takeaway, if there was just one takeaway you have from Vietnam, what was the one takeaway?
Well, being on the nice side, beautiful country. It's a great place to take a vacation. If one can divorce their thoughts, that if you've been stationed there, to get rid of the negatives and just enjoy. The people are wonderful. I loved them all. And some of them I loved even more than that. But it's a great place. I've been invited several times to go, and I just cannot bring myself to do it.
Well, we really we didn't do it justice, and I apologize for that. There's no way that we can do it justice in a conversation. I know that, you know that. Um, but hear me clearly. This is from one soldier to another. I appreciate your service. Thank you for setting a path for guys like me to follow. Thank you for preserving the freedom and passing that to me to be able to preserve for the generations there now. Um, you guys deserve so much more as a generation of warriors than you receive from this country. And uh, I'm personally indebted to you as a soldier to another soldier, and grateful for not just the volunteering once, twice, but 3 different times. Um, and then, of course, we're going to talk more. Your military service, whatever. But when we talk again, we're going to explore what that looks like. But welcome home. Thank you for your service. This country is indebted to you for the eternity of this country's existence, for the sacrifice of you, and more importantly, the brothers and sisters that are on a wall. So I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your service.
Hey, my dad was early Vietnam too, and he didn't talk much about it either. I actually have talked more with you about Vietnam than my dad, and so of course he's been passed for about 7 years now. I wish I would have, wish I'd been able to do more of that with him, but I couldn't. But I've got to know my dad more because of you, because what I learned a long time ago is one soldier is just like another soldier, and so So, it wasn't hard for me to join, wasn't hard for me to serve. And like you, I had great examples in front of me that drove me to serve, and then of course, serve again, and then of course, serve again, and then of course, serve again. I think I might be done now. I don't know. We'll see. I say might because, like you just never know when I'm called, I'll step in and serve, that. So thank you for the example you've given to not just me as a soldier, but for me as a man and for me as a black belt. I know I can speak on behalf of hundreds of black belts and thousands of students that you've set a course through your life that allows you to speak into our lives. And man, whether you realize it or not, Grandmaster Rankin, you have an incredible legacy. Your ability to some of us, you're William to others, but to the vast majority of people, you're Dr. William Rankin, Supreme Grandmaster and founder of the United States Martial Arts Association. And there's so many of us that are indebted to you for how you've raised the organization and raised us black belts underneath you to carry on a legacy that we're obligated to carry on because of the sacrifices of people in front of us. So with that, I'm going to kind of make a couple of quick statements to anybody that's watching this. We preach some tough topics. I mean, it's not easy to talk about service. It's not even easy to talk about experiences. And I ask that you just be respectful of what you've heard. If you want to share the information that's here outside of the context of this, I implore you, reach out to Dr. Rankin and get his permission first, and or someday whoever is in charge of his legacy before you speak of the things he talked about today, because he trusts me with it, he trusts you with it, and so we need to honor him and respect him for his service, sacrifice, and protect his legacy, because that's what this is about. This series of interviews might take 2, might take 3. I'm going to try to talk him into a third interview because we're going to talk for sure about post-Vietnam all the way to today, and try to chronologically examine the legacy of this great man and see what got him to where he's at today, and causes guys like me to be crazy in love with him, to follow him and do whatever I can do to help him. But more importantly, I also want to dive into his tactical intellect, his martial intellect. And I've got a series of questions I want to ask him. I don't even want to prep him for those because I just want to get authentic, what I know to be ass kicking Grandmaster Rankin on the mat with me. But there's some things that I think would be really interesting for some of you guys to hear about, the way he thinks, how he breaks down technique. So stay tuned. We're gonna have part 2 that's going to explore post-Vietnam to 10th degree black belt Grandmaster Rankin's life, and then if we have time in the next one, if not, then we're going to jump in. I'm going to talk him into the third one where we can just kind of talk about that tactical intellect that he has, because I think that's really where we're going to get the gifts that we get to keep on giving. So Grandmaster Rankin, Billy, brother, love you. Appreciate you trusting me at this time. And I look forward to us doing this again. I think we're going to try to get together another week maybe and do it again.
I think we agreed on the 18th.
Yeah, the 18th, right. And then we'll see, maybe we'll have a Christmas special, and maybe we do that one live on Facebook, and we talk about not the personal things, because these two legacies, part 1 and part 2, are really for those that he entrusts with this information. Third one I really want to play with more. I want to pick his brain and get him talking about bunkai.
Sounds good.
Appreciate you, Grandmaster. Love you, brother.
You be well, my friend.
Yep.
God bless you. When I end it, it's going to stop the recording.
Okay. Very good.
You take care.
See you, brother.
Bye-bye now.